Okay, hi guys. Today we're going to have a little quickie together, and it's called Illuminism and Ontological Mathematics Synonyms. How to be an Illuminist. Not trolling. It's time for you to awaken. And we're going to learn about equality. Isn't that such a nice topic, equality? Don't you want to learn about what Illuminism has to say and ontological mathematics has to say about equality? So we're just going to have a quick overview on this. The last few videos showed the mathematics of the monadic domain and the monad and how equality actually relates to that. So we're just going to simplify it to words so that you can understand it a little bit more simply, easily. Okay, so let's learn about equality. Yeah? Equality in equating things is literally diagnosable as mental illness. There are some philosophies out there, I won't mention which ones, you'll discover them if you need to, and they characterize it as when a person or a mind equates everything as being equal. So like all these different things are just labeled A, and A is labeled as, A equals A equals A, so everything is equal. This is actually indicative of mental illness when you equate things which are clearly not equal. It's mental illness, literally. The inability to distinguish, differentiate, and discriminate according to general rule of thumb attributes, which are learned through experience, such as skin color and race, indicates a severely traumatized mind made unable to reason. Now, this is important because the research shows that when a mind has been sufficiently traumatized, like when you as a soul in a body have been sufficiently traumatized, you will stop being able to reason. Now, this trauma can come from emotional trauma and physical trauma, both emotional trauma and physical trauma. And nowadays, the physical trauma is actually, it's sort of hidden. It's not as obvious. But the physical trauma, which most people are suffering nowadays, is actually being caused by the vaccine schedule, the vaccine injections, which are doing internal damage in your body and in your brain, and affecting your soul's ability, you as the soul's ability to function through the body. And especially because they hate reason. They, like the powers that be, hate humans being able to reason. And they know that traumatizing humans makes our souls, us as souls, unable to operate this transducer called the brain well, to reason well through it, right? So that's a big factor of the vaccine schedule right there. It's not about health. There's no health benefits to vaccines. They don't do anything for your health. Health is given by, babies suckling their mummy's breasts, right? That's healthy, right? A baby does not need vaccines while it's doing that come with all these things. And yeah, even if they're going to remove mercury from them, they're still doing other forms of damage, right? They're all very cleverly designed to cause damage on the interior to your brain and to your body, and they know that it does that because they want to traumatize you physically and mentally so that you're unable to reason, right? They hate, right? The slavers, what do slavers hate? They hate a population of slaves that can think, right? They want dumb idiots, not thinkers, right? So this is why you're being traumatized, so that you can no longer differentiate. When you can no longer differentiate, when a mind is sufficiently traumatized, its reasoning ability is sufficiently compromised, its decisions will be suboptimal and destructive, right? It won't be able to think of freedom, let alone devise systems of freedom and fight back against slavery, right? This is all very well designed. Slavery system we live in here, unfortunately. But we're going to fix it. The telltale sign of mental illness is the inability to discriminate and the denial of the value of differentiation and discrimination. That's the telltale sign that there is mental illness present. When you deny the responsibility to and the value of discrimination and differentiation. And I don't mean that as a pun with ontological mathematics. For example, what does it even mean to say that men and women are equal? What does it even mean? If you really think about that, it carries no meaning whatsoever to say that men and women are equal. Men and women are equal because they both breathe air, because they both have two eyes, because they both poop and pee, because they both eat. I mean, those are irrelevant factors, right? The factors in which we are equal are irrelevant. What's valuable about men and women is our differences, and the differences are real and they're valuable and important. the difference between, for example, how in dating and what a woman expects versus what a man expects. Those are valuable differences, and they're also valuable to understand, and they're valuable to work with. Why? To make each other more happy. That's why. So that we can be more happy, because guess what? We're actually very unhappy when we treat each other as equal. It makes unhappiness. You know why? Because we're denying reality, because we're living under a false pretense of equality. Just like the basic dating thing. Men and women are equal. However, all women like to be bought the dinner for the date. They don't like to have to pay. They might even say that they do, but I can guarantee you that the vast majority of the women still want the guy to pay for the date, and the guy wants to pay for the date. He does, right? So those differences are valuable. There's no value in denying them, in squashing them and wiping them from existence. What is the value in that? What can you say is the value in it? There's no value in it. And these things have inherent value because they come from tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. And so there is a value of the history of life's struggle to survive, and what it figured out was the optimal strategy to survive. There's the value of all the lives that struggled to survive and made it work and reproduced and led to us in our present time. So how can we turn around and say, oh, none of that was valuable, and all these things that we have built inside us to understand differences, which is going to wipe it all away? Now you can see, obviously, this is an insane plot to make us insane, to deny our valuable differences, right? So whites and blacks are equal. How? In what way? What right do you have to say that? Like, really, what right do you have? By what right do you have to say that men and women are equal, or whites and blacks are equal? What right do you have to say that? In the previous videos, I showed the ontological mathematics equations, which shows that, oh, wait, there's actually math, which shows that, yes, with the equations show that the differences are real, right? Those differences come about from hundreds of thousands of years of the experience of life struggling to survive. So how can you say that it's not equal? Or how can you say that it's equal, and what gives you the right to make equality out of things which are clearly not equal? By what right do you have that? The only right you have is emotional hysteria and the trauma which has made you irrational. So straights and faggots are equal? How would you even say that? In what way? I mean, straight people fit the mold of evolutionary history, and they're reproducing and creating babies, which is important for all life. And what are faggots doing? They're obsessed with their dicks and mutual masturbation, right? Not equal. Fathers and mothers are equal. Who would even think that mothers and fathers are equal? What an absurd thing to say, that fathers and mothers are equal. I mean, obviously all this stuff from equality comes from people who are in their 20s, or people between maybe 17 to late 20s, right? Having no life experience and being emotional retards who've unfortunately come through, I mean, it's not their fault really, they've come through an educational system which is retarded and has made them retarded and has traumatized them into irrationality and retardation. But fathers and mothers are not equal. And guess what? It's good. The difference between fathers and mothers, and the different ways that they behave with their children, and the different roles that they have typically and prefer to have, those are valuable differences. And they're valuable to maintain. They're actually really highly valuable to maintain. Whites and Jews are equal? In what way? They couldn't be any more different. And guess what? Those differences are very important to understand because they exist in reality. And we want to be able to acknowledge reality, don't we? So that we can understand it. And adults and children are equal. Yeah, as if. Really, are they? Adults and children? Children should vote just like adults. I mean, these are such statements of utter insanity. And the people who get away with saying things like this, well, anyway, it's basic just psychosis. And so these are signs of emotionally traumatized hysteria, irrationality, and insanity. Your response to these facts may also indicate insanity, so do some self-assessment. When you hear that men and women aren't equal, and that whites and blacks aren't equal, and etc., does it make you violent or think of violence? I mean, if it does, you have a problem. Because when I acknowledge these differences, it doesn't make me violent. When I acknowledge that men and women are different, does that make me say, oh, so you want to abuse women and keep them locked up? No, it's not at all. Not at all. But if that's where you go, you have a problem. There's something irrational inside. You've been traumatized in some way. You have some hysteria inside you or something that needs to be healed. Because acknowledging these differences does not equate to violence. It actually equates to wholesomeness and goodness and happiness. Because working with these differences and understanding them, we can then optimize society. You don't optimize society by just saying everything is equal. That's not how you optimize a person's life or society or individuals in society. You optimize society by acknowledging everyone's differences. And yeah, the differences do go according to characteristics, sex characteristics, race characteristics, etc. So if it makes you think of violence, it shouldn't make you think of violence. It should make you think of happiness and security and goodness and wholesomeness and comprehending reality and comprehending the reality that we live in, right? And it should actually make you feel more respectful. If you're a man, it should actually make you feel more respectful to a woman in acknowledging her differences. If you're a white person, it should make you feel more respectful to a black person to acknowledge their differences from white people. So the ways in which things or we are equal are irrelevant. Our differences are bespoke. That means that they're important and they're tailored, and they do fall along general characteristic attributes, which create rule of thumb, right? It's not that it's about skin color. It's that it's about the association. It's a rule of thumb, right? The difference is genetic, brain volume, brain size, levels of empathy. Yeah, there are different levels of empathy. The European people are a highly empathetic race. They really don't like parasitism and scamming. Other cultures aren't empathetic. So Illuminism through synonyms. So this isn't really a list of synonyms. It's more like statements, but it could be turned into synonyms. So let's see. So pro-white European is Illuminism, and it's also anti-non-white immigrant, right? And anti-foreigner poaching. So this came up saying, well, what about highly meritorious people of other races? Should we not include them? Well, what gives you the right to snatch them? What makes you think you have the right to poach a highly meritorious member of a different race and take them for your own? How is that fair to the other race? I mean, those people, if they're highly meritorious, should benefit their own people, don't you think? What gives you a right to be so racist that you think that that person of that other race belongs to you and should benefit you? Why don't you benefit yourself? Why don't you learn, if that person's doing something meritorious over there for their own people, why don't you learn what they're doing and see if you can replicate it yourself, and just instead of poaching them so that they can be a slave to you and your society to benefit you and your society? Anti-slavery, that means mass immigration. It's not actually for workers. I mean, ostensibly it's for workers, and yeah, they do work for less and they do suppress wages and take away jobs from native populations. But at this point, it's just an invasion force, and there's going to be a mass slaughter coming at some point. And you may very well see a country like Britain completely wiped out of all native population, white people. So more things. So anti-Islam, of course, anti-Jewish. So those are all synonyms with Illuminism. Okay. Illuminism is pro-eugenics. It's anti-race mixing. Generally, you have higher rates of congenital diseases and things like that. With race mixing, you just don't have as nice looking babies generally. And yeah, appearance does actually correlate to meritocracy and intelligence. Generally, ugly people aren't as intelligent and aren't as nice and aren't as friendly and aren't as empathetic and aren't as smart generally. It's a rule of thumb. Illuminism is anti-Down syndrome, anti-participation trophy, obviously, meritocracy, right? Anti-deformity, anti-obesity, anti-fat, and of course anti-junk food as well. So pro-eugenics, of course, that's Illuminism. So you want nice-looking people making very good pedigree, and you want the pedigree of those children. Now that doesn't mean, okay, well, let's go to, CRISPR gene editing technology. No, you don't have to do that. That's like the incel way of doing it or something. You just have to, basically, if you just have good food and allow nature to take its course, allow women to select who they want to be with, that's sufficient. Obviously, you could put a little bit more effort into a little bit of incentive to promote the highest meritocratic people in your society to reproduce, and the best looking people, of course, as well. And yeah, the better looking generally means higher IQ, especially for white people, especially for blonde white people. Blonde white people, the blue eyes, the better looking they are, generally the higher the intelligence. So that's very important for Illuminism. Pro-heterosexual, okay. Illuminism is about straightness and for straight people. I remember one time somebody invited me to what's that called? Oh yeah, Discord server to discuss Illuminism. And this Discord server was run apparently by homosexuals. And they said the most disgusting thing to me just when we were discussing sex. I don't even know if I should mention it here because it's just so gross and so horrific. And so if any girls are listening, I'm sure most dudes would be fine hearing this just for the ridiculousness of it. It's just, I'm gonna tell you what was said to me just when we were discussing the difference between heterosexual sex and homosexual behavior. Not that what homosexuals do together is sex. It's not actually sex. They're just masturbating, actually. But the person who was either running this server said that feces, poop from a man's bum, is equal to the vaginal fluids from a woman, the lubrication when you have sex, because they're both forms of excrement and therefore they're equal. And if you're not grossed out by a woman's vaginal fluids, then you shouldn't be grossed out by the poop in a man's bum when you have sex with it, because they're both the same thing, because they're both performing the function of lubrication. I mean, it's just so fucking disgusting. I'm sorry I had to fucking say it. I just wanted to share it because I've never shared that with anyone. But it's just so fucking horrid. And I want you fucking people to know who think that Illuminism supports homosexuality. You're fucking disgusting. You're fucking disgusting, and Illuminism wants nothing to do with you. Okay? Get fucking lost. Get lost and get away from us with your disgusting reasoning. See, now take that for reasoning. See, this is one of these people who've been, and I'm sorry because, yeah, you are the result of severe mental and emotional and physical trauma. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you've been made to be the way that you are. But when you're reasoning, when you think you're an Illuminist, an ontological mathematician, and your reasoning is that poop from a man's bum is equivalent to a woman's vaginal lubrication because they perform the same purpose, you think. That's the A equals A equals A equals A equals A problem, where you're unable to distinguish reality. And you've been made insane. And I'm sorry that you're insane. I'm sorry that whatever happened to you, you have vaccine damage or bad food damage or whatever it was, or you were possibly molested as a child or whatever. I'm sorry that happened to you. But please, for the love of God, don't fucking expose the rest of us to your disgusting fucking reasoning and your disgusting thoughts. It's so horrid. It's so horrid. So Illuminism is pro-heterosexual, anti-homosexual, anti-bisexual, anti-easy sex, right? High body count stuff, and anti-pedophilia, of course. Pro-female. Illuminism is probably the highest or the biggest pro-female philosophy out there that you can find. It's anti-pornography, anti-sex work, anti-polygamy, and anti-high body count. These are all things which are good for women. Right? It's not good for women to go into porn. It's not good for them to have to go into sex work to survive. It's not good for them to be going into polygamist relationships. That's really not good for society either. That's not good for white society at all. You will see a total degradation to just a purely violent society when you have that type of society, a polygamist society where only the top 5 or 10% of men mate. That just results in a bad situation. And anti-high body count. It does no good to have a high body count. It doesn't help anybody. It just singes and burns off your ability to form a lasting, stable relationship. Okay, so quick short one there. Just wanted to get a few things out there to get people thinking a bit more clearly. There's the support for Monero. Monero is a private cryptocurrency. The disgusting, retarded balance sheet pervert bankers can't see what you're doing when you use this cryptocurrency, so you should use it just because it makes them cry. Like literally they cry. Like I should have that meme up there of that crying soy jack, right? That's them actually. Crying soy jack. That's a banker when you use Monero cryptocurrency. They're just the crying soy jack. Typical banker. That's like the perfect image for the bankers. Crying soy jack holding a balance sheet. Right? Saying, my balance sheet, right? And okay, there's my book. So guys, I'm heading out to look at some mountain bikes and hope you're all having a good day. And I'll be back with more math content soon. Okay, bye.